Welcome back to the Drive to Dayton podcast. Myself, TJ Peatross, joined by Mike Roth. We are fresh off of district finals weekend. Oh man, a lot going on, a lot to talk about. Aside from the games, winners, losers, social media has been really dialed in and focused on a lot of topics that we're going to touch on here today. But with that being said, Roth, man, like, what are your just kind of first impressions on, how the tournament has looked? Seven divisions. We're here, love it or hate it. This is what we got to deal with. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the stuff that I was expecting to have happen did happen. Martin RPI had a couple good statistics. I'm going to say real quick. Last year, average margin of victory in district finals was 13.1. This year it's 14.7, which is a noticeable increase, but not super crazy. And the percentage of single digit games in the district final went down from 42% to 38%. So, like I think me, you, and Matt Gould all expected, we were going to get a few less competitive games, but it wasn't a drastic change. We're getting nothing but blowouts. There still are competitive games. There still were a handful of upsets, probably a couple more than even I was predicting. It's never going to go exactly according to script, but there were even a couple random upsets where I was like, I did not see that one coming at all, which we'll get into those individual games a little bit later on. But I will say when the games are played on the court, I mean, sometimes the basketball delivered and sometimes it didn't. That's just what you're going to get in March. Sometimes you're going to walk into a gym, think a game's not going to be great, and it's going to be an awesome experience. And other times, one team's going to show up and one team's not. There's no bracket or no formula you can have that can guarantee a good game or guarantee a bad game. It's eventually up to the players and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I've been talking to a bunch of different people just about, how I think a lot of narratives on social media tend to really guide and lead our thinking, right? We all kind of came into this thinking that, the games wouldn't be as competitive as years past. And with that in mind, right, we're seeing some of these huge blowouts and we're going, see, I told you. But then some of the close games or some of the like the big upsets, we're not talking about as much because they don't fit our argument. I've been a little good. I've been a little guilty of that too. On Twitter as of late. I guess for me, it's like, not as much of the margin of victory, but just like it just seems like the overall lack of excitement and just kind of lack of feel. I remember like last year, for example, like those D1 district finals down in Columbus, that was like, it felt like must see TV. Like it felt like if you were a basketball guy and you were close to Columbus, or if you were a scout or a media dude, you were trying to get to Ohio Dominican last year. All the talk between, Reynoldsburg and Olentangy Orange. Then you had Hilliard Bradley and Westerville Central ended up being an absolute, like, just classic of a game. It just seemed like people were a lot more excited last year than this year. And I think not only, can we see that on, the social media and overall engagement, but like some of the attendance at these games, hasn't been great. I know you were down in Columbus for the D1 district finals over at the Ohio Expo Center. Like, how would you say the attendance compared there versus, what we saw last year at ODU?
I think it was significantly less. I mean, I think that the venues were a little backwards. You know what I mean? We're playing district championship games and the regional games at the Ohio Expo Center, which is seats probably 5,000 people, which is huge. And Ohio Dominican was too small, but really only too small for the regional final games. Every other game, it was like 75% capacity. Maybe one out of the four district finals would actually be 100% fully sold out. People wouldn't be able to get inside the door. And I also noticed there were a handful of games where only one school would even have a student section at the Ohio Expo Center. At Ohio Dominican, that never happened. Every school had at least somewhat of a student section. And I think there just needs to be a way to make it cool for the kids to go support their classmates again. I thought that the games at Fairfield had pretty solid student section support. Oak Hills and Lakota West played a game at Fairfield High School, which is a beautiful high school gymnasium in the same conference that both Lakota West and Oak Hills play. And you saw a ton of students at the game. I think playing the games at a familiar environment, a place that kids have been there before, whether you play soccer, football, lacrosse, volleyball. Every student at Lakota West and Oak Hills has been to Fairfield for an athletic event, most likely. So going there was probably really easy for those kids. You didn't have to pay for parking. It was a good environment. I think all of those factors helped out get a big student section at the games in Cincinnati, especially compared to the games at the Expo Center, where it seemed like every game there was one set of student section bleachers that were totally empty. And then the other side would have 60, 70 kids. So I think just figuring out a way to make it cool for the students to support their classmates, easy sites to get to. I think for the earlier round games, that's the most important. If you want to play regional finals, Final Four games at huge venues like the Expo Center, I think that makes a ton of sense. But district final games, I think that places like Fairfield, Mason, Ohio Dominican, Otterbein University, Mount Vernon. Those are sort of the perfect locations for district final games, perfect size, clear views of the court. I mean, Ohio Dominican's basketball gym is built for basketball. It's built for you guys to watch that sport, where the fairgrounds, it's made for the rodeo and hockey. And then they can also host basketball games as well. So just a little different experience. I know some Columbus people like it and some don't.
Yeah, I think one thing that we all kind of forget to factor in sometimes, because a lot of the people I talk to, obviously the group chats that we're in, just the general conversations with high school coaches. I mean, these are all people, including myself, who just absolutely love basketball, right? Like, no matter where these games are played at, we're going to find a way to get there. I think we forget just how inconvenient some things can be just for the casual fan who doesn't have a kid playing, who doesn't have a horse in the race, and just wants to come out and watch basketball. When you got to go to the Expo Center and there's two, three, four different other events going on at the fairgrounds at the same time. You got to maybe get there 30, 40 minutes early because you got to wait out in the long lines, for the toll booths or ticket booths, whatever you want to call them. Right. And then it's like finding parking, walk. I mean, it is something that I agree with what you said. It can definitely turn away, I think, some casual fans or people who were, debating on whether or not they wanted to go to the game versus some of these locations that are just more accessible, easier to get to. You know exactly what you're going to expect. Some of it maybe have something to do with the fact that the Expo Center hasn't had games, I believe, in 10 years, right? So maybe some people didn't know what to expect, or I don't know. It definitely does feel like there's just a major drop off, like I said earlier, just in terms of overall just feel and excitement. Because I mean,
And
there's been some really good games played, right? But it just doesn't feel like it. I
and and there's been a lot of talk over the girls' Final Four, so many of their games being played in high school gyms. Barely any of them are at college locations. And I think for the district round, I think that high school gyms are fantastic places to go play a game. I mean, you look at Vandalia Butler, Trent Arena at Fairmont. We already mentioned Fairfield and Mason. Those are fantastic sites to host those sort of games. But I also understand you want a more pristine venue for Final Four type games because in the past you were used to going to Ohio State or Dayton. So I definitely understand why, especially girls basketball fans, are frustrated that they're going to Elida for a Final Four game, which even though I do think Elida is a pretty nice site. I mean, you got plenty of parking. They're going to really take pride in hosting the game. Like they want you there, but I understand some fans being like, man, this is a Final Four game. Like I want to play this at a Final Four type gymnasium. And high school gyms, I'd say besides Camp McKinley, there aren't high school gyms anywhere else that feel like Final Four level facilities. I think Canton is the only exception. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I do think there are some underrated gyms too, man. Like I remember going up to Euclid High School for some district finals games. I'm not sure what happened there as far as that venue, but Euclid, I mean, to me, when that place is packed, like that was a really fun place to go watch a game. So I do think there are like some gyms, some cool spots, but yeah, I mean, I think it is just the perception of playing a Final Four game at a high school. I mean, I definitely can see the frustration from parents, fans, because like I said, it just kind of does. You lose some of that feel. You lose some of that luster. Like this is a game to go to the state championship, and I'm playing it at our rival's school, or just a place that we drive past on the highway. Like it doesn't feel as much like a spectacle. Um, but people also got to understand too, man. Like we don't have a whole lot of venues to choose from here in Ohio. And then now you move on to, seven divisions, and you think about how many Final Four games have to be played now. It's different. We went from what, eight Final Four games to 14 now,
Yeah.
right? It's like finding these places to play. It's going to be difficult. One thing I will say, I hope that we get to see some Final Four double headers, just because I think that's going to make it a little easier for guys like me and fans that just want to go out and watch good games. I will say I will be pretty disappointed. Um, let's say that Saturday or Sunday when we get these Final Four games going, if you're only able to see one game or maybe two games if you drive fast enough. Like I hope we can get some double headers. I do know Bowling Green is a site for some of the boys semifinal games. What other sites? I'm not sure. Someone who has a source pretty close to the situation told us that the Ohio Expo Center is booked out, so there will not be any Final Four games there. So I guess it just kind of curious, man, to see where these games are going to be played, the matchups, how it's going to go. Just feels like a lot of uncertainty, and I think whenever people are kind of confused or not sure what's going on, it's kind of hard to get excited. Like we were talking about this before we pressed record, but I've been talking to a good amount of high school coaches who believe they have a really good shot to win their region, make it to the Final Four in their respective division, and they have no clue who to scout, right? Like if you're Division 7, right? Um, and you're a Warren JFK or a Cornerstone or a Rushi or a Delphi St. John's or a Botkins, you had no clue like that's a lot to ask. Like, hey, if I'm, the coach at Rushi and I want to drive, to go watch South Webster because I think that may be who we end up getting matched up with or whoever wins that region, that's a 3 hour drive. That's a lot to ask for somebody to go out and watch a game just for the chance that you might not even play them. And the fact that you don't know who you're going to play, I think that makes it a little more difficult on high school coaches. Thankfully, they will have some extra time. I believe they're going to have what, 6 days? Some will have six, some will have seven,
Yeah,
right?
in most cases you'll have 6 days. But another thing I think Matt Gould mentioned, some coaches were complaining they couldn't get huddle film from their opponents, which seems kind of crazy. I'm sure everybody ends up getting film from somehow, some way, but that's just another, I don't know,
Yeah,
interesting
uh,
loophole coaches try to take. I don't know.
that's been around longer than you've been alive, Roth.
Probably.
Yeah, man. And that's nothing new, unfortunately. Yeah, you would think it'd be easier to get film now, right? Just with the technology and just how easily you can just click a link and send it to a guy. But I don't know. If I'm a head coach, man, maybe I do want to make it a little difficult for you to get a look at my guys. I don't know. I see both sides of it, right? Like if you're an opposing coach, like yeah, it sucks, but I don't know. I don't know how accessible I would want, my team to be. Um,
Some funny
yeah,
gamesmanship right there.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, no sorry. So yeah, I mean, I guess we could take a look at, just kind of see, what our thoughts were and some of these games that went down. God, man, it was a lot. It felt like a lot going on, a lot of blowouts, a lot of really close games. And one thing I wanted to bring up earlier when we were talking about the margin of victory is some of that may be skewed a little bit just because like some of these upsets that we saw weren't just like buzzer beating upsets or winning by 3 or 4. Some of these teams were smoking these guys that they shouldn't have been. So
Yeah,
it's like
upsets by like 13 points or 11 points, where the
look
worst team won.
yeah, you look at like a Olmsted Falls over St. B. Olmsted Falls has been a program that, I catch usually once every few years. And shout out to Coach Chris. I might be butchering your last name, buddy. Coach Chris Delicio. I mean, dude, his teams just play just a really refreshing brand of basketball. I think I spoke on this whenever I saw them at the Midview event back in November. But man, guys play hard. The ball is moving. Guys are talking. Guys are making shots. Like it's like, man, that's why I mentioned earlier, man. Sometimes culture and just the way you play and how you do it every single night, it matters so much more when we get this late in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Sycamore over Moeller. I think that was an 11, 12 point game. Another example of an upset, and we'll get to all of that. But I think if we're going to go region by region, we have to start in Region One, where you're going to get St. Ignatius versus St. Ed's on one side of the regional semis. But TJ, who or I mean, Ken McKinley made a nice little run to win their district, but who are they going to get in the regional semis? Because you had probably the best game in the entire state this week.
Man, Brunswick Whitmer was a game. I believe I tweeted it a few days before. I thought it was the best district final on paper across the state, regardless of division. And sometimes that is the case, and those games don't typically live up to the hype or pan out to be good games. Man, this was like an absolute, like, it almost, I don't want to go as far as to say like a classic, but man, it wasn't too far off. So Brunswick just came out the gates just absolutely on fire. Junior guard Trey Drexler was putting on a show like he's done many times this year. I believe he had 19 points at the break. Brunswick was holding on to a double-digit lead, and Whitmer, surprisingly, man, like really struggled to score it, especially in the half court. Brunswick's a team that offensively has been really, really good but has had times where they had, difficulty staying in front of the ball. I thought we might see some of that with the Whitmer game. And it was the exact opposite, man. Shout out to Coach Mackey. Is a guy that, I speak highly of. I thought they did a phenomenal job defensively in that first half. But man, Whitmer woke up in that third quarter. I believe they went on a 20-3 run. It was nuts. I think Trey Drexler might have hit a three about 2 minutes left to kind of break the run. But yeah, Whitmer just exploded in that third quarter, and they just didn't look back. I thought Antoine West, Makai Leach, I mean, that's as good of a backcourt as you'll find in any division, any game, any team in Ohio. And they sure as hell looked like it on Saturday. They ended up winning. And it was a wild sequence down the stretch, too. I mean, Brunswick got fouled in regulation with no time remaining on the clock, down two. Sean Barnett misses the first one. And man, when I tell you, I don't know if this ball could have been any more in than it was, just completely in and out. Brunswick attempts to miss the second free throw, ends up being a free throw violation, and that was the ball game. But man, that was phenomenal for anybody that was in attendance at Akron North. All the chatter and all the talk on both sides, whether you were a Brunswick fan or a Whitmer fan, there weren't too many sad faces, man. I think people just realized that hey, I just watched a damn good high school basketball game, and that's flat out what it was.
And now I think we expect Whitmer and Ignatius to meet in the regional final, but I mean, don't count out Canton McKinley at all. They have been on fire recently. Did you see them on Tuesday or Wednesday?
I saw them against Strongsville on the road in a game that I thought felt like a coin flip game, right? I thought it could go either way. And there was another game that was kind of tale of two halves. I thought McKinley had a bunch of just mental lapses on the defensive end in that first half, gave up a bunch of layups, bunch of open shots, and it was looking like a game that Strongsville was just going to take control and not give it back at any point. And then McKinley in that second half, man, just turned up the notch defensively. I can't tell you how many layups they got off of just creating turnovers. Guys flying around, getting deflections. Some of the kids in Strongsville were having a difficult time just getting the ball across half court. So McKinley is very, very capable of making you uncomfortable, speeding you up. Guys like Jalen Jeter, Reed Sims, Anthony Chavers, Ed Webster, bunch of guys that are all capable of scoring 15 plus on a given night, but are also going to really compete their tails off on the defensive end. So I do think Whitmer is the favorite. I think these are two teams that kind of play a similar brand of basketball in a lot of ways. I just think Whitmer has an edge in talent. Um, and I think there's not too many other. I mean, it's pretty close, but I just
Yeah.
think when you have the two best guys on the floor, and those two guys are going to have the ball in their hands a lot, I think that just that's a difference maker for me. So I'm going with Whitmer, but I do think it should be a really fun game.
And then Eds and Iggy. Iggy obviously has a massive talent advantage, but I think there's been at least twice in the last 10 years where one of Eds and Iggy swept each other in the regular season and then the other knocked them out come playoff time. So even though the Wildcats are going to be prohibitive favorites on paper, I'm never counting out a rivalry game like that in the regionals. You get hot, grab a couple steals, like play out in transition, gain some confidence. If you go into halftime, Ed's up 3, 5 points, it's going to be a barn burner of a second half. But I could also see Ignatius running him out the gym and winning by 25. So that's a
Yeah,
game that could go either way.
and we've talked about this a little bit in the past too, man. Sometimes when you've beaten a team twice, especially if you thumped them, right? You beat them 15, 18, 20, in those first two games, even though you're playing in a regional semi, it's hard to get that thought out of the back of your head as a 16 or a 17-year-old that, hey, man, we just kicked these guys' butt, two times in a row. It's hard to maybe mentally get yourself up for that game. I think the fact that this is a rivalry is going to really help in that regard. But man, I'm not counting out this St. Ed's team either, man. You look at what a kid like Brian Blasic just did the other night. Had 20 points, in the first half. Guys like Drew Yurchich who can really shoot it, really score it. A guy that's sneakily been kind of like the heart and soul of this team a little bit as of late is senior Bowden Grant. He has been competing his tail off, man. Talking about a kid that just makes winning plays on both sides of the ball. He's been a bit of a surprise for me as a kid who I think has really stepped up and kind of embraced almost like a leadership role for this young Edge group. So yeah, I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
That leads
Very
us
region.
That leads
And
us in perfectly to Region 2, where you got another pair of conference rivals going up against each other, Upper Arlington and Olentangy Liberty. I mean, these are two teams that saw each other twice. I believe Liberty swept them. But if you're Upper Arlington, you got to feel pretty good. I mean, I thought Alex Smith played his best defensive game I've seen of his career. I believe he had 3 blocks and 3 steals in their district final victory over Newark. Hayden Henry hit a buzzer beater to end the first quarter and a behind half court shot to go into halftime. Luke Mitchell knocked down a couple threes, who's a sophomore. He's continuing to grow in confidence. So Upper Arlington's a team to watch. Olentangy Liberty, they had Tyler Crop played a fantastic game. It's very rare when you see a big control a high school game offensively in like all facets, but that's exactly what Crop did against Pickerington Central. I mean, he was scoring, assisting, rebounding, basically doing anything you wanted. And then on the other side of the bracket, you're going to get Dublin Kaufman, who had a fantastic game from Colin McClure, probably the best game of his career. Super efficient, was making a bunch of tough shots. And then in overtime, after he made a bunch of tough shots, he became the assist guy, had 3 assists, I think, in the final minute of the game and in overtime to help Dublin Kaufman get a win over Pickerington North. And you almost had 4 teams from one conference winning Region 2 district titles, but in what was the talk of Ohio and apparently the talk of many other national media brands, Overtime, Sports Center, all
Absolutely.
these different places. The nut shot heard across the country between Ben Murgon and Makai Roddy. I mean, it's so ridiculous to think about, but what a just so many variables from that game. It was unbelievable being in the gym there, a fantastic environment. That game exceeded expectations. Hilliard Bradley did what they had to do if they were going to pull the upset. They shot, I think, 60% from three in the first half. Jaden Reed Davis and Kip Norris did not play like freshmen at all. They were confident. Ben Murgon had probably 8 assists or more. I mean, he was doing fantastic. And then, yeah, you get the punch. I will give the refs a little bit of grace. I thought it was difficult to see in the moment how intentional it was, but then on replays, it was very clear that Makai Roddy probably should have been ejected from the game. But I do sympathize with the refs because I, like all the refs, moved my head when Ben passed the ball and assumed he just got hit on a steal attempt and not a blatant attempt to injure him. So that was a little unfortunate. I do feel bad for the refs who are getting a lot of flack because that
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to see, like you said, man. Once that ball gets passed, guys' attention goes elsewhere. I think my biggest issue with this whole situation and just how, how much talk and how much attention it's getting is it just feels like this is just a microcosm of like what society is, right? Like we have a great weekend of basketball. Like we just talked about, we got the Whitmer Brunswick Classic game, right? You get a good day of basketball in Columbus after many people, including myself, thought that they had potential to be kind of a lackluster or an average day. Ended up being better than, expected. But instead of talking about basketball, man, I'm not going to speak on the situation with Pick North. I didn't even want to spend too much time talking about this. Um, but it just blows my mind, like what sticks with us as people and like what we end up talking about and what just kind of leads the conversation. It's not, hey, what game were you at this weekend? Hey, what'd you see? Who do you like? Hey, did you see that video? Man, this thing is like, this is nuts. Like, no pun intended.
come
But
on, man, you walked yourself into it.
I did. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just like, can we talk about something else?
It also was a crazy game. Like besides that play, like Hilliard Bradley getting up 15 points, they were making shots and then they ran out of energy. They couldn't make the same shots late in the third and in the fourth quarter that they did in the first half. And credit to Reynoldsburg, the one thing that they did to earn that game is they rebounded at an elite level in the second half. They probably scored 8 to 10 points off second chance opportunities in the second half. And that was the difference. They got maybe two or three putback layups off rebounds they had no business getting. And at the end of the day, that was the difference because if Hilliard Bradley grabs two more rebounds, they probably have enough time to ice the game at the foul line and win. So credit to Reynoldsburg for competing when it looked like they were maybe going home, but they found a way to get done and they move on and they'll play Dublin Kaufman and then either Upper Arlington or Olentangy Liberty in the regional final if they're able to get to that point.
Welcome back to the Drive to Dayton podcast. We are joined by Coach Spencer Cordonnier from Rushi. Oh man, so I got to give you a proper introduction, brother. So his sixth season as a head coach, he has a combined record of 132 wins, only 25 losses, if my math is correct. But most importantly, man, this guy can hit that ball, man. He played baseball at St. Francis, NAIA out in Indiana. And coach, these numbers may have changed, but we're going to pretend like they haven't. As of May 2019, you are sixth in most career home runs, top 10 in RBIs, top 10 in total runs, and second in walks for your career.
Oh, that's interesting. First of all, thanks for having me on. I had no idea about any of those. I may have 20 years ago, but those things are long past. Aaron Elwer up at Delphos might have something to say with that. We played 2 years together there, so he may be on there as well. I don't know, but
That's so random.
thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
That would be a
so
crazy storyline if you guys met.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We played, I think it was, I can't remember if we played 3 years together. I know we played 2, became pretty good buddies, still talk to this day, bounce stuff off each other and help each other out whenever we can.
That's awesome.
yeah, coach. So like obviously, played, baseball in college. Like, what led you to go the basketball route, man? Because we all know, especially nowadays, man, coaching high school basketball is not for everybody. But I guess like when did you start? What kind of was that like transition for you?
So I grew up. My father was our girls' coach at Russia here from '88 till 2004. Might have been '89. I think it was '89 to 2004. I had two sisters that went through his program here, and they both followed in his footsteps. My older one first. She was the JV coach with him for probably 7 or 8 years, maybe 10. And my last year of college, it was in my 5th year, and my younger sister was playing, and Dad asked me if I wanted to help him out when I could. And I drove home from Fort Wayne on game nights just to get my feet wet, and I kind of fell in love with it. Being in the gym, and my dad and the boys coach for 33 years, Paul Bremagen, were best of friends, still best of friends to this day. Paul was in our practice tonight. He's been in there since the first week of the season, enjoying himself again. So I kind of grew up that way, and I mean, this is basically what I've known.
And coach, I think what you just said kind of speaks to the community and the support that you guys get at Rushi. I've been mispronouncing the name of that school for like the first 32 years of my life, man. I did not know until I believe it was like the 2022-23 season. Somebody on our show might have corrected me, to be honest. But I think a lot of people, especially those up here in Northeast Ohio, got our first experience with you guys down at the state tournament. And I remember sitting there, I'm on press row, and I'm watching you guys come out in that first half against Richmond Heights, right? And just the support and the way that environment was, it almost looked like Richmond Heights was like, what is going on? Like, it was like, did we miss something? Like, did we miss the email? Like, what the hell is going on here? And that's kind of how I felt too, man. It was truly an awesome experience. I think one that, I don't think I'll forget. Just in terms of just the sheer, just like how loud that place got, man, just how cool it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, the community – go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, has it always been that way?
Oh, yeah. I graduated in '95, and my 3 years of playing varsity basketball, the gymnasium was packed every Friday night. And then, on Saturdays, if we had – kind of some rivalries with, Minster and Versailles. Versailles is a big rival of ours. I mean, the community has been packing gymnasiums for years. And, it all starts with the parents at a young age, really getting these kids out, getting them exposed to, to baseball, to basketball, to track, cross country, golf, you name it. The kids are doing it. The size of the school, if we don't have our better athletes playing 3 sports, who knows what we would be. That's what makes us what we are is, all these guys are 3-sport athletes. Basketball in the summer is we have open gyms 2 nights a week. We'll play in a summer league in June. But as far as the shootouts and going here and going there and spending all summer in the gym as a basketball player, I really believe it's baseball season. So, and I believe that these kids need to be kids. And, if you got a baseball game, go play baseball. If you're playing travel baseball, go play it. get a ball in your hands whenever you can. And, obviously these last 3 years, we've had some special groups coming through. But all that started at a young age, and them being in the gym on Fridays and Saturdays and seeing how exciting it is, and the community support, it's kind of second to none. And we're just not the only community around here. Fort Laramie, Versailles, Bodkins, Minster, all these communities, they really get behind, their athletics, and they show the support that these kids need.
It really is remarkable. I went to one of your guys' games, and I thought it was fascinating that it seemed like the same parking lot was used for the high school and grade school, which is altogether a church, and the like baseball fields and like soccer fields that you guys got in the back. Like everything is right there. Like it's such a community oriented place. Everything is on top of each other. What has it been like watching your teams and your kids go on runs in baseball? Because not only are they becoming regular members at the basketball state tournament, but the baseball program has had a ton of success too.
Yeah. It's always been, I don't know. I don't know if it was more so a baseball town before, and now it's kind of, now it's kind of both. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's guys, that have to play 3 sports, and they went in golf 2 falls ago. They made it to state in golf, some of these same athletes. It's I don't know. It's a lot of hard work and dedication. I know, my son, for example, as a freshman, went from golf straight into basketball, straight into baseball, and you got about 1 week and you're playing games, and it's been that way the last 3 years. So they don't seem to get tired of it. Obviously, with the success that they've had, I can't imagine any of them going, "Oh man, I wish this was over." So you come out here on a summer night, and on Monday nights it's baseball, Tuesday nights it's softball. You go out to the park. Every field has kids on it from kindergartners up to 6th grade. And, I don't know that, not necessarily just the Northeast, but if you're not from around this area, you don't really know how small it truly is. I mean, you're right. The K through 12 is in one building. And, when I graduated in 95, there was 342 students, K through 12. And, we got to the regional finals in basketball and baseball that year with 342. Now I think it's, 400, 410, maybe K through 12. But like my senior son my 2nd grade son is hitting him in the leg walking down the hallway. So it's really, really, truly a neat place. It really is.
So, Coach, I correct me if I'm wrong, but you were a head coach, right, for a while, and due to just kind of like work, right, and
Yeah.
your 9 to 5 had to take a step back, and then we all know what happened, back in the fall of 2022. You came back. What would you say, like, has much changed from you? Would you say your first coaching stint, to your second, like in terms of just like the different dynamics of, whether it be parents, community, the game itself? Have you noticed anything different?
I haven't. The kids year in and year out, I think, Paul Bremengen set the expectation many, many years ago. That one thing's for sure, if you're going to play for Russia, you're going to play hard. You're going to work as hard as you can, and we've always kind of hung our hat on defending, and that certainly hasn't changed. There's going to be years where you don't have as much talent as you did, the year before, but the one constant is the kids are going to work their tails off, and they're going to try and give you the best that they got every single night. And when I took back over after the unfortunate accident with Dave, I just felt like, he's got a son. we had coached these kids all the way up. He has a son in that grade. He's got a sophomore son, and I just kind of thought, I've got to put some other things aside for now and make sure his son is taken care of and get him the rest of the way through, and my son as well.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I think that was probably one of the coolest things to see, man, was just like everyone just kind of rallied behind you guys. It seemed like people not even from Rushi, right, became almost instant fans. Just kind of given the circumstances and how you guys played, and how the kids approached it, like every single game. It's been a blast to watch from afar. You got 11 seniors right now. How has it been to coach this group?
I going into the season, I told my assistant, Coach Francis, I was like, I'm not extremely looking forward to this because I've been with these kids for, 10 years. Myself and Dave Borchers and 3 or 4 other dads were up there on that first night when they were playing baseball at 6 years old in the summer. And, when they started playing basketball or, practicing basketball in third grade, we had, 17 or 18 of them. Well, now we're down to 11, and I'm friends with all these dads. These kids have been like, another son to me, and they're all not going to get to the playing time that they want. So it's been a great time with them, an exciting time with them, but also, in the beginning it was extremely hard because I knew, some of these kids, they're just not going to get to play as much as they want to play. And I've got to look at them every day in practice, knowing that, they're not going to get the time that they want. But they've all handled things very, very well. They're a really tight-knit group. They get after it. Our 9, 10, and 11 guy of those 11 seniors are getting after it in practice every single day. And, one of the players in an article said, I know these guys don't get the notoriety that they deserve, but I don't know that they really know how much they're helping us in practice, and they just don't get any credit for it in the game. So,
Yeah, it almost seems like, Coach, like these last few years, especially, like you'll lose 2 or 3, 4 guys that I'm like, man, those guys were, really, big pieces to the puzzle. And I'm like, how are these guys going to bounce back? And you guys just continue to, sustain this certain level of success. And with bigger schools, right, like schools in my area, the schools like the Massillon Jacksons, the North Canton Hoovers, right, they're huge, right? And these youth programs they probably have more kids come out for third grade travel trials than you guys have in the whole K through 12. I mean, it's so like the fact that these schools, right, can maintain a certain level of success, while it's not an easy thing to do, it's easier to wrap your head around it considering just how many kids they have and how much time and resources go into the youth programs. You guys like aren't really able to do that, not only just from a sheer size standpoint, but just from the fact that your guys are playing so many different sports. You don't have them when these other guys have them. You don't have them in the fall for open gyms and conditioning. You don't have them for large parts of the summer. Like,
yeah, it some of them, I know a couple of them last year, they went out for baseball and they were going to go out and then, kind of decided, well, I don't know that I'm going to really play. Maybe this year I need to go, like Borchers and York. They went and they got a full slate of AAU games. And it really helped those guys by taking that year off. Well, now guess what? They're playing baseball this year. So, they're just they're so competitive. And like I said, the parents have instilled that, at a young age, and they just compete. They love to compete. They compete at a very high level, and they just won't quit. And I don't know how this story is going to end up with these guys this year, but they just keep grinding.
Yeah.
Coach, I guess one thing, as soon as this happened, in terms of like when we found out we were moving to 7 divisions, from the previous four, the first one of the first things that came to my mind is like, man, I wonder how pissed Rushi is. I think a lot of people, were like, oh man, imagine how happy some of these smaller schools are going to be right now. They don't have to worry about the Lutheran East or the Richmond Heights of the world. Like, how bad do you think your guys wanted to run that back with them one more time?
Oh, I mean, I'm assuming in the background when these guys are getting together and not around adults, they probably talk about it. I mean, I haven't really heard much of it. After we played them the first year, and that second year, it was leaning towards that last year in the 24 season. Those guys, they were like, we want another shot at them. There wasn't any talk like they got a state championship from, because that's the unknown. Like there wasn't any guarantees there, and they enjoyed playing against them. Both teams just really, really went after each other, and it was played the right way too. I mean, yeah, I'm assuming on the floor they were talking to each other a little bit, both sides. I mean, that's just human nature with those kids, but it was a really highly contested, highly competitive game, and I really don't know that any of them really have any regrets on, oh, I wish we wouldn't have played them. So I mean, they played in the marquee game in the state tournament in Division 4 the last 2 years. So yeah, I think they were very appreciative of the moment both years in a row. And, I'm sure 5, 6, 10 years from now, they'll be sitting around like, man, them guys got one from us. Or, if we'd have done this, they'll talk about that for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. And I think that's the best part about all this, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said earlier when you were talking about kids, who struggle sometimes to, do I want to play baseball or should I focus on this? Like in 15 years, man, no one's going to care who you played AAU for or how many minutes you played, or it's just about enjoying the moment, being a kid. Like we put so much pressure and expectations on these kids and we just forget to let them go have fun. Let
Yeah.
them let them go do the shit that's actually going to matter in 10, 15 years from now.
And that's what we've talked about here this last couple of weeks. Like, we told them day one, you get to end of January into February, it's a complete grind. You guys don't want to be in here no more than I want to be in here for 2 hours a night. And as soon as the regular season ended, we're going, okay, everybody's 0-0. You can forget about 22-0. Nobody cares about that anymore. You are 0-0. Ansonia, first round, or not Ansonia, but so whoever we played, it was 0-0. And the next game, it was both teams were 1-0, and that's what we've talked about. Like, okay, this is it, gentlemen. Let's just have some fun. Let's play basketball and let's have some fun and see where this takes us.
This is my last question, but one thing I've noticed watching teams in the Shelby County Athletic League and the MAC especially is I see the same last names everywhere. Like I see the Cordonnier last name, I see the Niekamp last name, I see the Bruns last name at Rushi, Marion Local, Coldwater, Versailles, Botkins, like Plymans. What is it like just going up against and having so many of like the same families who are all around there and they provide cousins and uncles who have played at the school before? Like, I don't see that at any other part of the state as much as I see with your two conferences. Just the same, their grandparents played there, their parents played there, their kids are probably going to play there in 25 years. Like, what's that just like? It feels like something you don't get anywhere else.
Well, and I think that's why you see, the community support in these packed gymnasiums that you see. When kids graduate here, they go away and they stretch their legs a little bit and they go out and experience this and experience that. And a lot of times, and it's starting to happen more and more here at Rushi, they're coming back. because of they're coming back just because of how special it is. I've got, like I said before, I've got an 8-year-old that's a second grader, and he wants to go down to grandma's. Go. I don't worry about anything. He jumps on his bike and he goes to grandma's, or he goes and gets his buddies, and they go up to the park and play, and that's kind of what makes this place so special, and people want to come back and raise their families here. And Laramie and Minster and Bodkins and Versailles, it's the same way. And the people just, they want to come back because it's family friendly, and your kids get to enjoy childhood where they don't have other things to worry about. They don't have, the things that city kids worry about or city parents worry about. I don't worry about any of that. And I think, that's just what goes on around here. And I encourage, after, at the end, when I took my son out of the Marion local game, I put my arm around him and I said, I don't know where this world's going to take you. I said, but I want you to look around and see how special this is right now. Just take a look around and enjoy this moment. I said, because your kids someday could have this moment as well, whatever you choose to do. But I do want you to enjoy this and to see, if you ever decide to come back, this is what your kids are coming back to.
That's awesome, man. And just listening to you, talk about that almost kind of gave me like some nostalgia over it. I remember being a kid, at my grandpa's house, and before phones and everything, and I just remember like you'd wake up, you'd eat your bowl of cereal, you'd hop on your bike, and the best way for you to figure out where your friends were to drive to ride your bike to everyone's house and see where the bikes were laying at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, everyone's over here, like, so it's awesome, man. That's the kind of feeling that you guys get down there. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then, like I said, it's in all the communities around here. It's any one of them, are just a special place to live.
Hey, Coach, one last thing before we get you out of here. Don't want to take too much of your time. We've been talking about it on the shows for the last couple of weeks. Is just some of the new challenges that come with the 7-division format, and just some of the uncertainty for teams that think that, hey, we may have a shot to win the region. But we don't know who in the world we're going to play, right? Potentially in the Final Four. Like, obviously, you're trying not to think too far ahead, but, the coach and the basketball junkie in you, right, is exploring all the options and avenues. How are you kind of, I guess, handling that? Just kind of the uncertainty of where games will be played and who they'd be against.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. I mean, we first and foremost, playing Northside Christian on Wednesday. And then whoever our opponent would be on Saturday, if we were able to get there, you do have to look forward, because now's the time to be going and seeing those teams, whether or not you're going to play them. And, yesterday we jumped in the car and drove to OU to watch South Webster. I get the uncertainty of not knowing where your region leads to. I think moving forward, something needs to change there, because, we're not going to get an opportunity to go up to the Northeast and see who a potential opponent would be. Now, obviously, the Northwest is a little closer. That's being held over at Elida. So that's a little over an hour from here. But, going down to OU yesterday to watch the Southeast was a 3-hour drive for one game. I mean, we literally watched one game, drove 6 hours, watched one game, and came home.
Yeah, at least you got to go to Athens, baby. Best place in Ohio.
Yeah, I got pulled over last time I left there.
Well, I mean, and not only is that just like first off, welcome to the life that me and Mike Roth live.
Yeah.
Bases driving 2-3 hours for one game, but just the fact that you made that trip, and you may not only that team, it's always been the possibility, hey, this team could lose, right? But the fact that hey, this team could keep winning and we still wouldn't see them because we don't. It's just kind of mind blowing to me. We talked about it earlier. At least you guys do get some more time between regionals and states for all the coaches where you can use that time to get caught up on some film. But as a scout, I'm not sure how it is from your point of view, but I always appreciate an in-person evaluation. I can watch as much film as I want, but just seeing those guys live, getting that eye test, getting that just initial feel person to me is so important. Like, do you put a lot of value into that as well
Oh
versus
yeah. Oh yeah. That's I first and foremost, like we talked about before, it isn't going to be easy at all to get out of this region. I
no?
mean, Northside Christian poses a problem, and also either FM or Bodkins. And if we have to play Bodkins for the third time, any one of these teams can win that regional. So, but going back to seeing them in person, yeah, that's what I like to do. I don't need to see them 2 or 3 times. I just like to see them on the floor in person, see what their personnel's like, and then what if I have to go back and watch some video, then I know what I'm getting, what I'm seeing on that video. So, yeah, it is always nice to see them at least once in person.
We actually both got to see Franklin Monroe, me and TJ, at the Harvest Prep event against Chesapeake. But their I think their senior leading scorer was out that game, but you could
Yeah.
still tell they had a couple of pieces, and I'm sure once you add him back into the mix, I mean they're going to give Botkins, which should be a very competitive game.
Oh yeah, the Brenner kid and the Fall kid, those two can both score it. They run a lot of good stuff for their athletes, and Bodkins with the Plyman kid really the second half of the season has asserted himself more into the offense. Dosek's a handful. The Steinke kid got 9 or 10 on Saturday against Jackson Center. The top kid can really shoot it. He's burned us in the past. So yeah, it's not going to be easy. By no means are our guys looking any further than Northside Christian. I just don't allow it, and I don't look past it either.
And I don't know if you can. I mean, especially the way these teams have been losing this past week or so. I think just the district semis and the district finals, just there were maybe not like just a big amount of upsets, but the upsets that did happen just felt so loud.
Yeah,
Like,
there were a few that were surprising. So yeah, anything can happen. It doesn't matter, and especially if you get somebody hurt. I mean, the biggest thing right now is we got to stay healthy.
yep. Well, Coach, we both wish you the best of luck, and hopefully, we'll see you back down at UD. Would be lovely for all of us. But we appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, your wife's not too mad at you or too mad at me. Uh, so have a good one, brother. I'm sure I'll be talking to you sooner than later.
Well, thanks for having us on, and yeah, I would love to see you down there again, but there's a lot of work to do yet before we get to that
Basketball
point.
can be played. So
Yeah, yeah. So, all right, guys, thank you.
And I mean, you look at Region 3, like you were mentioning before the interview with Coach Cordonnier, shout out to Groveport, Madison, and Beaver Creek. I mean, getting victories over Delaware, Hayes, and Princeton, two of the arguably top 10 teams in Division One heading into this tournament. Those are two signature wins. And we weren't at the Beaver Creek versus Princeton game. I assumed they had a pretty impressive performance, but Groveport, I mean, they just flat out competed. They've got a ton of athletes. And I mentioned this in one of the group chats we were in. If Groveport was up in Cleveland, they would be Third Coast Hoops' favorite team to watch. He would be at least 5 of their games in a season. Just their style of play, their grittiness, defensive ability. Shout out Kamar Keys, shout out the Moore brothers, shout out Tyreek Ruffin. I mean, they just flat out get after it, and it was really impressive. So they get to play each other, Beaver Creek and Groveport, after both picking up big wins. One of them is going to be in the Elite Eight, likely facing Olentangy Orange, who gets Sycamore, who pulled off a couple upsets to get here too. So this was the region of upsets.
Yeah, this is definitely just a very interesting region that just did not play out at all how I would have expected it to. And shout out to Groveport too, man. Coach Hampton, I think, is just doing a really good job. I think he's gotten the absolute most out of that group in terms of what they could possibly give. I think he's getting it. And man, do they just fly, like you said, they compete. And that Kamar Keys kid is on a short list of just most explosive kind of freaky athletes, man, in Ohio. I think when that kid's able to get downhill or get up out in space, he is a top floor athlete. Shout out to Zach Fleer. He posted like a video screenshot of a block that he had on like a corner three. I mean, it was nuts.
That was to
So
tie the game with 10 seconds left, too, to put into perspective the moment of the block.
that was I didn't get a chance to watch the video of that play, but I definitely need to after seeing that still shot. That was insane. Yeah, but while Owen Change Orange obviously is the heavy favorite here, I mean, crazy things have happened, crazy things can happen. But if you are Coach Kalo, shout out to Coach Kalo, friend of the show. I mean, I don't think you could have asked for a more favorable path than what you have right now. But sometimes
Got
what
to
it
handle
looks
business.
yeah, sometimes what it looks like isn't what it is. So definitely, like Coach Cordonnier said, man, a lot of basketball to be played still. So will be interesting to see. But as we move on to Region Four, um,
The
we
Roth
talked about
region.
this. Man, you want to when was the last time we had a regional tournament in Southwest Ohio without Centerville or without Moeller
Since
or
before I've been doing that.
without Elder or just like this is crazy to me. So in the first matchup, we have Lakota East against Fairfield, two teams that are very familiar with each other. And on the other side of the bracket, we have Lakota West against St. Xavier. In my opinion, that is easily one of the most intriguing games on paper. I think just the youth and athleticism and just kind of shot making and offense of Lakota West versus a St. X team who yeah, I think you can make a case is probably the best defensive team in Ohio. If not, they're on a very, very, very short list. I think that's just going to be a battle of pace, and I'll be determined to see if this young, talented Lakota West team can make things uncomfortable for St. X, if they can get out and in the open floor, if they can generate some offense, get the defense moving a little bit, create some shots for guys like Isaiah Mead Moss, and Bryce Curry. So it's going to be interesting. It's a region that I'm intrigued by. Uh, and Roth, I mean, you're a Cincinnati guy. Is it fair to say that any of these four teams could win the region?
Absolutely. And
Like has a
especially,
legit shot to win it.
yeah, I think so because you look at Lakota East, Trey Perry is not going to go down lightly in the playoffs. There is zero shot. A Clint Atkins coach team with Trey Perry is going down lightly. Fairfield is a team that was really impressive in conference play, had some weird non-conference losses, and they have been rolling in the playoffs. They steamrolled through Middletown and Elder, two solid programs. I was at Fairfield's game against Middletown where they got contributions from a handful of guys. It seemed like four guys, I think, scored 8 or more points. And then I saw Lakota West and St. X both win district titles. Lakota West got great play from Josh Tyson. That was a barn burner of a game. I compared Oak Hills and Newark as almost sister programs. They both got coaches who have been doing it for 30 years. They got tremendous community support. Oak Hills had two seniors, Nate Wright and also Henry Magan. They both played fantastic final games of their high school careers. But Lakota West was able to get it done. Had the ball bounce their way one time on a pass to the baseline. It was fumbling around a couple players' legs, ended up corner three-pointer for Lakota West to break a tie. And that was the shot that flipped the game with about 3 minutes to go. But that was a tremendous environment, great game. For St. X, it all comes down to is Jacob Wassler going to be back on the court? He didn't play against Lebanon. They still held Lebanon to only 25 points. So we'll see if Wassler is back on the court or if he's still out because If Wassler's not able to go, I think that takes away a big advantage that St. X has. And Lakota West just beat St. X 2.5 weeks ago, one of the last games before the regular season ended. So, but it went down, I think it went to overtime, maybe. So, should be another competitive game. Maybe the one I'm most intrigued by in this Sweet 16 round. Any final thoughts before we move on to Division Two?
Oh man, I feel like there's going to be one team out of these 16 that we're not talking about enough. A team that's just kind of still quietly somehow sneaking under that radar, just playing really good basketball at the moment. I'll be curious to see who that is. But I do think we're going to get a team in the Final Four that we are not expecting to get in the Final Four. And I wouldn't be shocked if we ended up getting two, to be honest. I could see a team like Lakota West winning that region, making a push. Um, yeah, it's gonna be wild. And like so many of these teams, have a guy, right? And I think that's such a, it doesn't get, looked at enough. We talk a lot about teams, rightfully so. But sometimes when you have a guy that can just go make something happen, like that's such a big thing, man. You look at a team and, we'll get to them in a
Dakota
second.
East.
Yeah, Lakota East, or like a team like Westerville Central in Division Two. Like they have a guy that is capable of just absolutely going off on any given night. And when you have that, it's like you're going to have a puncher's chance no matter what. If I had to make a pick though in Division One for a team that I think could quietly play their way to the Final Four, I would have to go with Coach Nosman and Olentangy Liberty. I think that's kind of my sleeper pick, right? Obviously, Reynoldsburg's still the favorite, but I don't think it's too far-fetched to say Liberty has a shot.
Oh, absolutely. I talked to Coach Nossman walking out of the Expo Center after the Bradley versus Roundsburg game, I think. Or maybe I saw him. Yeah, I think it was that night. So yeah, we'll see. But moving over to Division Two, I think this is the division that probably it's fair to criticize OSHA the most for what's happened in this division. I mean, some of these
Yeah.
district champions are just not district champion quality teams. There are,
Can we stop with the district championship and district runner-up stuff if you didn't even win a damn game in the tournament? There are teams that are 0-1 in the state tournament that are receiving medals and trophies for picking a damn line on a bracket. Can we stop with that, please? It's bad. I think it just plays into just like how some people, and rightfully so, are looking at the tournament now. Like, you keep seeing the phrase water down, water down, water down. And some people may agree to that, some people may disagree. But hell, when you got a team that was bottom five in their own region, getting a district runner up for losing a single game, just losing one game, it's kind of hard to argue against the people that are voting for, the other side. Um, can we just stop with that? Can we either get rid of districts moving forward and just put these guys in the regions and leave it at that? Or can we at least just stop handing out medals for teams that are winning one game or just losing one game? Please.
I I agree 100%. And starting in Region 5, it looks like it's probably going to come down to Warren G. Harding and Brecksville Broadview Heights as shout out Shaker Heights. I mean, they upset Massillon, Washington. That's a big time win. Maybe they'll be able to keep it going against Brecksville, but looks like we'll likely get Warren G. Harding versus Brecksville. And then in Region 6, uh, North Ridgeville plays North Royalton, and then Avon plays New Albany, another region where it looks like we're going to get North Royalton versus New Albany. We both saw New Albany on Sunday. They looked Final Four good, no doubt.
Yeah, and defensively, I thought they were just so disciplined and so intact. I mean, Northland had such a difficult time scoring in the half court. And I don't like, obviously the outside shots weren't falling, but man, they weren't able to find anything that they liked. Thankfully for Northland, they're kind of, they got some guys that are gritty, scrappy. Shout out to junior Deontay James. Some guys and just went and made something happen out of nothing. But you want to talk about just go make a play. There was not a whole lot of that against New Albany. And they're a team that I would say I think is probably the heavy favorite remaining out of those four. Um, a team that could quietly, man, I don't know. It's giving me some vibes, man. I don't want to say anything. Maybe I'll save it for next episode. But man, I just think this New Albany team, what they're able to do on both sides of the ball, I think is a lot. And they can play however you want to play. You want to get up and down and shoot it. You know, they got guys that can advance the ball, make shots, get downhill, get to the rim. I mean, they can dance to any song you want to listen to. So
And they got a coach that has won a state title. Casey was there in what, 2014 when Upper Arlington won it.
I believe so.
Yeah. So then moving to Region 7. This was almost the Westerville region. You got Westerville Central taking on Westerville North, big time rivalry game. We'll see if Josh Henderson and Amari Spiva can keep Central competitive with the prohibitive favorite in the region. And then you got Big Walnut, their young squad, a lot of 2027 talent on their roster. We saw them win a district title. And then Licking Heights got the win over Westerville South at the buzzer. Shout out to Licking Heights, an impressive win. They've got two 2026 bigs who are pretty intriguing. Any notes or stuff that you want to highlight from this region?
I I will say that Westerville Central, Westerville North game does intrigue me a little bit just from just I think just the pure emotion and the talent that's going to be on the floor. I'm not saying that Westerville Central is going to win the game, but I would not be shocked if it's a heck of a lot closer than people are expecting it to be. I think probably whoever wins that game probably goes on to win the region. Um, but yeah, I think this is Westerville North to lose. Um, and it looks like we're still somewhat on this collision course of Westerville North Lima Senior. Still a lot of basketball to be played. A lot can change. A lot can happen since then, especially the way that Toledo St. Francis is playing. And that's another game. We'll get to that now in Region 8. Where on the top we have Winton Woods and Lima Senior, which I think is a very, very good regional semi game in Division Two. And then on the bottom half we have Toledo St. Francis against a Loveland team that both me and Roth saw back in November. But yeah, man, that a game that shocked me, right, was that St. Francis St. John's game. I thought St. John's was the team that I picked to win the region. Uh, probably a little bit slight hot take, right? But man, I thought they were very capable, and I still think they are. I think St. Francis just probably played one of their better games of the season. I mean, I want to say at some point they were up. They were up big. They were up
Like,
almost 20.
yeah, I think like 28 to like 11, something like
Yeah, it was
that.
something when I saw that score update that my eyes got huge, man, when I saw it. So
This is by far the most competitive Division two region. I mean, you got Wentwoods, Lima Senior, Toledo St. Francis, and Toledo St. John's. That actually had a handful of competitive teams. I guess we can move forward to Division Three, Region Nine. You mentioned it earlier. Shout out Olmsted Falls with the upset over St. V. We don't get a Hoban versus St. V rematch as Hoban took care of their business. They'll play against Olmsted Falls. And then shout out to Padua, man. Riley Cervenka, big time senior. They win maybe the most wide open district in the state. I mean, that Division three district, Northeast four, that had Padua, Cleveland Central Catholic, Gilmore, Bedford, Alliance, Barberton.
yeah, I mean, legit, any of those teams that we just said, probably like with the exception of a Cleveland Central Catholic, right? Just because they were without sophomore King Young. I mean, any of those other six teams that we said, legit could have won that district, and I would not have batted a single eye.
Yep.
I watched a Alliance, and in that game with Barberton up 11 in the fourth quarter, feels like they're going to win it. Barberton, I think, God, outscored them like 26-6 in the fourth quarter. It's like insane, right? They go on to win the game, and then Barberton and Bedford goes to overtime, settled on a buzzer beater, and then I believe Padua and Bedford didn't that go to overtime as well?
It went down to the wire. I'm not sure if it went to overtime or not, but
Or
Division three, Northeast four.
it did.
Well,
54-49. Yeah, so Bedford, man, playing back-to-back overtime games in the district semis, district final. But yeah, that region was just completely wide open. And you got to think, I mean, Padua, who ended up winning it, they nearly escaped Gilmore, 47-46.
Hmm.
So, I mean, any of those four teams legitimately could have gotten out of there.
Yeah, and
And
now we might see a Garfield Heights versus Hoban regional final, which would be pretty intriguing.
it would be. And I believe that's on the day where there's not a whole lot else going on across the state. So I think you probably get a big following there as far as Northeast Ohio fans. I'm not counting out Olmsted Falls, though. I don't know what it is. I mean, call me crazy. I do like this Hoban team. I've spoken highly of them all season. But when I watch this Olmsted Falls team, like I see them, like I said, probably once every other year. And I kid you not, it's just copy and paste. It doesn't matter what's on paper. Those guys are going to play the same way, and that's hard, that's fast, and they're going to shoot the crap out of the ball. They're going to play the right way. And this isn't a Hoban team that has, the Jonas Nichols of the world or the Will Scotts, right? Where like these just like elite talents that I think that can, win a game for you just off just pure ability. I don't think this Hoban team quite has that. Um, I think this team is susceptible to lose to a game like Olmsted Falls. Not saying they will. I'm not shocked if Olmsted Falls finds a way to keep this going. Um, but yeah, I mean, it does look like we're headed towards a Hoban Garfield Heights regional final, and I think if that does happen, flip a coin, and
Yeah.
hopefully you're. I mean, that's a game I think goes either way.
And then moving to Region 10, I plan on being at these regional semifinal games, Lutheran West versus Sandusky, Toledo Central Catholic versus Lima Shawnee. Two really intriguing matchups. I mean, Sandusky, I mentioned on our regional pick show, I was wondering if their seniors had a run in them. It looks like they do. I mean, they handled business in their district. So shout out Sandusky. They'll play against Jordan Duke and company in Lutheran West. And then that Lima Shawnee versus Toledo Central Catholic matchup, man, that could go either way. And I would not be surprised. I think I'm going to get a really fun doubleheader at the University of Toledo.
I think you are too. Man, there were so many choices for me on Wednesday. As of now, I think I'm going to go do Columbus Academy Margaretta. That's another game that I'm really intrigued by. We'll get to that in a minute. And then, like I said, that Lima Senior, Winton Woods, St. Francis Loveland doubleheader. I mean, there's just a lot of games.
That's not a doubleheader, by the
Oh yeah,
way.
you're right.
Yeah,
7-7, yeah. Um, but man, yeah, just a lot of games on Wednesday to choose from, regardless. Um,
absolutely.
and when we look at like a Toledo Central Catholic and a Lima Shawnee, um, are we looking at two of the top five teams in Division Three?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many good
Close,
teams. Look at
close.
Louisville, Bishop Hartley, Garfield Heights, Cincinnati Aiken, Trotwood Madison. I mean, there's a lot of teams to pick from. You could say that. We'll
I,
see.
I think those are two of the top. I think those are two of the top five teams in Division Three, man. And that's a game. Hell, man, I may call an audible, and make my way all the way out to Elida. I guess we'll just see how I'm feeling that day. But yeah, Region 10, I think that's going to be a heck of. I mean, that might be my favorite region that's left.
The last time I was at the University of Toledo for a playoff game was the controversial Garfield Heights versus Whitmer game. So maybe I get as much excitement this time around. But moving to Region 11, we have two Columbus Catholic League schools going up against really outsiders from this region, traveling a long way to get to Columbus. You got Louisville and Columbus DeSales versus Bishop Hartley and Steubenville. I think this is another fun doubleheader. This one's on Tuesday night. I could see this one going a variety of ways too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at DeSales, still the only Ohio team to knock off Reynoldsburg this year, which is not an easy feat by any means, considering how talented those guys are. A lot of people are anticipating a potential Louisville Bishop Hartley game. I don't quite see it that way, man. I'm not as sold that that's what we're going to get. I think it's a good chance, right? But I don't know. I just don't see DeSales or Steubenville going down without a fight. I just don't. And I think
Absolutely.
and I think those are two games. It's going to be really fun. I think if you're a fan of just up tempo offense, good guard play, I mean every single team in that region has a stud guard. You look at DeSales Senior, PJ Knowles. You know, in Louisville, you have Bo Siegfried, Bishop Hartley. You have the Callaway brothers. Steubenville, you got Santino Haney. I mean, it's like
And Aiden Davis.
yeah, and Aiden Davis committed to West Liberty. So I mean, you just have like a slew of scholarship talent in the backcourt on each every one of those teams. So yeah, I mean that's going to be a fun region. I'm sticking with my pick though, man. Before the season started, I picked Louisville to win the D3 state championship. I'm sticking with it. Division three is so wide open that I'm not super confident in that, but I do think that they get it done.
It's that Stark County bias, man. That's what I've been saying this whole time.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Moving to Region 12, we got two GCL teams going up against the two favorites everybody's been talking about. I think this Aiken LaSalle game is really interesting. I said on the preview show, if any team was going to mess up in Aiken versus Trotwood regional final, I thought it would be LaSalle. I think this team has a lot of talent, but Trotwood themselves, they were in a dogfight in their district final, had to come back, force overtime against Turpin before they won. And then Stubbs picked to win the region out of left field, Hamilton Baden. They're sitting here chilling in the weeds. Nobody's
Ready?
talking about them.
Right. Oh my God! If they win, Stubbs ain't gonna let us live that one down for a
I,
little.
I couldn't name a single player on Hamilton Baden. I don't think so.
But after Stubbs picked them, I just out of curiosity, man, I went to their conference page and was just like, I mean, so it's kind of impressive little resume they have. They
We'll
played,
see.
yeah, we absolutely will, and
I'll
you
be
know,
there for the regional championship game, no matter who it is. But I would
yeah,
love to see a Aiken Trotwood rematch. But I wouldn't be upset with any of the four. It should be a good game.
yeah, the scout in me, right, wants chalk, wants the top teams to keep winning, get the best matchups. In my brain, it means the best evaluations. But just the pure basketball fan in me, I love the stuff, man. Like I love these teams that just kind of throw a wrench into everybody's expectations and everybody's hopes for what they think a regional or a state semi or a state championship is going to look like. And there are a lot of teams that have potential to do that and kind of ruin some of these picks that people have had for months. So
We'll go a little faster in the smaller divisions. Division 4, Region 13. I think this is a stacked regional semis group. Bookdale versus Glenville, Warrensville versus Canfield. Man, flip a coin, both of those games. I think you are going to have, and especially Bookdale, Glenville, that is going to be fun, up and down, a lot of athletes on the court, a lot of talent. Really intrigued by that one. And then we'll see how far Warrensville Heights has come after Canfield dismantled them last year in this same round. So we'll see. I'm really intrigued by this region.
yeah, that's a doubleheader that I plan on being at on Thursday. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this is a different Warrensville Heights team. I think the addition of a senior like Noah Chambers, I think that's huge, right? Just a guy who's won, has played in big games, gives them some toughness and some experience in the backcourt. I don't think this is that same Warrensville Heights team, but man, Canfield is a team that's very capable of not only winning that game but winning that region. Shout out to Coach Velakovic, man. Coach V, friend of the show, friend in our hearts. Yeah, very, very easily, a region that could be won by any of these four teams. So I'll be curious to see how it goes. I will be there in the best venue in Ohio. Don't at me. I don't care. Canton Memorial Fieldhouse. There's not a better place to watch a packed basketball game in Ohio. Only places I'll give you Struthers Fieldhouse, super underrated place to play basketball. Roth's never been there. Don't look at him. He don't even know where Struthers is.
I know where
Uh,
Struthers is.
Struthers Fieldhouse is big time, guys. And that's another place that I wish it was a little closer so we could get games there. But man, that place is beautiful. And it's such a big kind of throwback type of gym. Um, yeah, that's one of the only other places in Northeast Ohio that I'll even listen to. But
Moving to Region 14, this is sort of the region of life. You got Elida and Napoleon from Northwest Ohio, and Napoleon takes on Jonathan Alder, I believe. And then shout out to Hawken, man. They take down Youngstown Ursuline, and then they get a buzzer beater to win their district. This is a team both me and you have been high on all season talking about them. Shout out Hawken, baby. First district title in, I think, a long time for them.
yeah, and shout out to Coach Bink, man, doing this in his first year over there at Hawken. You had two really talented guys come back that are juniors now, with Deron Hill and Gregory Price. You add in a stud freshman and Jordan Ice Taylor, and this is a team that on paper has got some guys. They have three really really good players in the backcourt, and we got to see some up and down. Right, they looked really really good against Cleveland Central Catholic. I think despite a loss, right, I still walked away thinking, hey, this is a team that can make a push in Division 4. They've had some uncharacteristic losses along the way, but man, this team seems to really be finding its stride right now. And they're in a region they could win this region. They absolutely could.
Absolutely. I think they're the favorite,
I would say so too on paper.
but I
I,
don't know who's going to win this region.
I
No
think they
clue.
have. Yeah, me either. I think they have the most talent by
Yeah,
far in this region, and I think Coach Bink has come a long way, man. That sideline out of bounds play that he drew up against NDCL, just to get a wide open layup for Deron Hill like that, the buzzer, man. Shout out to Coach Bink, man.
absolutely. We'll move to Region 15. This is where I'm going to be at on Thursday night. Unioto versus River Valley, and then Gator with Maysville taking on New Lex in an MVL battle. Shout out New Lex. Their team dealt with injuries this season, found a way. They were criminally underseeded, but the Southeast District, they put you on the bracket NCAA tournament style. So they had to go through the top dog Megs in the Southeast District, slayed the Dragon. We'll see if they can slay the Dragon in Maysville, who's the top seed in the East District. And you got to see River Valley, who has a sneaky under the radar sophomore.
They do. Shout out to Carter Myers over there. He was a guy that we kind of got tipped off to by our good buddies Grant and Lance Gillian. They told us, they said, "Hey man, this kid's pretty good." So I had some time on Sunday. I just got done watching New Albany, Northland. Made my way over to Otterbein to watch River Valley, Buckeye Valley. River Valley is intriguing. They have a senior guard. I believe his last name is Ebert. I liked him. They had a junior guard who really struggled to shoot it, but you could tell just played with a ton of confidence and moxie. Looked like a kid that could very well, just kind of fill it up. But Carter Myers, man, for a sophomore, I thought he just really played with a ton of urgency. Uh, got a great frame for a young guy. Doesn't look like a sophomore by any means. Um, River Valley is good. Um, I think a potential River Valley Maysville game would be a heck of a lot of fun. Um, but man, speaking of Maysville, can we just is Gator Nichols on like the Mount Rushmore for like coolest names in Ohio? It has to
Oh,
be
yeah.
like regardless of sport, I don't think you can find four cooler names in Ohio right now than Gator Nichols. Like if your name's Gator, like you just got to be good. Like I don't think your name could be Gator and you not be good. You got to be either really good or really country, one or the other, or both. But yeah,
Region.
shout out to Maysville, man.
Yeah.
That's a team. I just love the way they space the floor. They attack you off the bounce. All those guys seem to just be able to really process the game quickly, play an unselfish, fun brand of basketball. Uh, I hope to see Maysville and UD just because I'm a fan of the way they play. So
Moving to Region 16. This is the Alta versus Wyoming crash course, but we'll see if Oakwood can give Alta a game or Northridge can give Wyoming a game, because everybody has been moving forward to that being the regional final. And Who knows? Maybe one of them has an upset scare this week, but that would be a big time regional title that I will be at on Sunday.
If I was a betting man, I would say one of those games is going to be dangerously close. And if you're somebody like me who is practically begging for an Alter Wyoming regional final, so I can make the trip down to Xavier, I feel like I'm going to be nervous updating, updating the Twitter. I'm going to find whoever the hell is at the game, and I'm going to keep refreshing that thing. And one of those games is going to be very, very nerve-wracking for me. Um, and shout out to Oakwood who beat Cincinnati Taft along the way. I definitely thought we were going to get an Alter Taft game there. But yeah, shout out to Oakwood. Sneaky good program, man. They seem to always win games, always, advance pretty far in the district. They always have college guys.
Reuben
Uh,
brothers.
Reuben brothers. Man, I feel like ever since I've been around, it's a damn Reuben at Oakwood, just
Well, yeah,
getting
because they play from freshman year. So there was one for 4 years, and then right when the one left,
bucked.
I think the other
Yeah,
came in.
and they get buckets, man. Shout out to the Reubens.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
think
we
Region 17 is a similar way. You got Lutheran East versus Norway and Richmond Heights versus Canton Central Catholic. I think there's a chance they're nervous. I know Richmond Heights beat Canton Central Catholic by 30 in the regular season, but you can't tell me there's no shot that that is a tight game in the fourth quarter.
and this Canton Central Catholic team is absolutely steamrolling people right now along the way. I think what they did to a pretty tough competitive Trinity team says a lot. Um, Man, that game is going to be a lot closer than people expect it to be. I wouldn't be shocked if we're going into the fourth quarter and that's a single digit game. Not shocked at all. I do think Richmond Heights finds a way to get it done. Um, but yeah, I'm not betting against Canton Central Catholic. I don't think they're going to go in there and get smoked. I don't.
And then you have been hyping up this game, thinking about going to it. Margaretta Columbus Academy, the Jake Meisler Super Bowl. Will who you got?
The buckets bash is what I'm calling this. So we got. I, I don't know, man. I think Columbus Academy. I think the difference is I think they might have just like maybe one and a half more guys than Margaretta does that can just go make a play. Shout out to this kid. I might butcher your last name, and I apologize in advance, but a kid that I like, especially just as a high school player, is the senior for Academy, the Theo Falkenheim kid. I mean, him and Judah Keller matching up, and then obviously you get the Jason Singleton, Julian Washington matchup. You get Caden Ivory and Cale Bailey, right? They're like these teams on paper match up pretty well with each other. I think an X factor could be a guy like Anderson Davis for Columbus Academy. 6'5", big, high motor, can score 15 feet and in. I'll be curious to see, if he's a guy that can, just really take advantage of, just the lack of size on Margaretta. But man, I think Coach Keller does a phenomenal job, and I'm not shocked either way that this game goes. I will more than likely be in attendance. Um, I just think it's very rare that we get a matchup like this with two of the better prospects in the entire state playing in a regional
Regional
semi.
semi. Team's
Something
got a
good.
combined one loss. They're like 24-0 versus 23-1.
You know,
Ridiculous.
yeah, Margaretta is going to bring the whole damn town. Unfortunately, their girls lost, I believe, in the regional final
Oh,
this
okay.
week. So, fans no longer have to worry about, trying to split time or get from one gym to the other gym. I think Margaretta is going to pack that place out. I think it's going to be a fun environment and a really good game with two Division 5 teams that do not, on paper or on the court, look like Division 5 teams.
And shout out Fairbanks for taking down Harvest Prep, one of the biggest upsets of the postseason tournament. And then also Bishop Reedy took down Afrocentric. That was, I almost picked Bishop Reedy to win the region. I just didn't have it in me to take them over Columbus Academy, as Academy got them twice. But we'll see if they even face Columbus Academy. I will say
Close
Reedy
was
has,
obviously we were at the first game when Academy and Reedy played. The second one was what was it like low double digits, like
yeah,
nine to 11.
I think like 13.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely a game that could go either way again. I
Re-
don't know, me, or does it seem like this year has so many more of those kind of matchups of like a team that is beaten their opponent twice, and has to play them this third time around on just like a much bigger stage. Like God, I keep saying it, but those are tough games that I, as a coach, would not want to play.
I think with the condensation of divisions, you just get more games like that where your rival is a similar size school. You're going to be in the same region. Like you might end up playing them for a third time.
100%. I think we are seeing that a lot more right now.
Region 19, you got Minford as a prohibitive favorite as Martins Ferry took down St. Clairsville, and then Chesapeake was the other Southeast District champ. Minford got Garaway, Chesapeake got Martins Ferry in a doubleheader. It's actually the only doubleheader on Friday night for fans interested in seeing two games on Friday. Convocation Center in Athens, only place in the state where you can do that this Friday.
I
Don't shake
love
your head at me.
I love OU. I love all the coaches at OU. You make me almost want to not like OU somehow. As much as I love those guys, I have to like channel it and just tune you out. Region 20. Yeah,
Corey
I mean
Albertson.
the Corey Albertson region, man. Not a ton to talk about here. But one thing I think is really cool, man. Shout out to Preble Shawnee. Obviously, Coach Turner left and took the job over at Hamilton. Has a lot of young talent over there. A team that I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about them a year from right now, just with the freshmen and sophomores they have. But for Preble Shawnee to be right back in the regional tournament, despite losing their coach, despite losing some of the guys to transfer or graduation. I think that just speaks highly of the coaching staff and those guys and the support that they have over there. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, with all that being said, I mean, this is Summit Country Days region to lose.
Yep.
Not only are they the favorite, they are the heavy favorite. Um,
Region 21, we got Campbell Memorial versus Stubbs pick Dalton out of nowhere. Stubbs just taken, I think they were like the 11 seed to win the region, and they won their district. So we'll see if they can keep it going. And then Smithville takes on Kirtland. I know Martin RPI shout out Kirtland at the end, and we both took Smithville. So some familiar faces there. Anything you got on Region 21?
no, not really. I think yeah, Smithville is the only team that I've seen on this list. Shout out to my guy over at Campbell Memorial, man. It's been a long time since I've talked to him or seen him. But yeah, he's sneakily has a really good program over there in the
One of the
Youngstown.
best in Youngstown.
Yeah, they do a good job year in, year out. So rooting for Campbell Memorial, rooting for Smithville. That's just a little personal bias there.
And then Region 22, this is where I'll be at on Tuesday. We got Colonel Crawford versus Maumee Valley Country Day and Lima Central Catholic versus Patrick Henry. Two really intriguing games. I'm excited to see three new teams. Colonel Crawford, good point guard Braden Holt, Maumee Valley. They handled business against Mohawk. I think they won by like 30. And that was a pretty competitive matchup on paper. Lima Central Catholic, you got Jordan Pretty going up against Reed Krieger. Ohio State baseball commit Mac Heber also had a big game for Patrick Henry in their district final wins. So two pretty good games at Bowling Green on Tuesday. I assume I will get to see the Davy guys there as well.
Feels like another wide open region on paper. I feel like we do have quite a few of those.
And
And
then
then we
can I brag a little bit in Region 23?
Man, God, the one dude who there's a guy, man, I'm blanking on your name. I see you everywhere I go, and I apologize in advance, brother. But man, I swear this dude has been telling me about Monroe Central from the start of the season. He's like, hey man, don't sleep on these guys. Don't sleep on these guys. Oh, I think they just have too much depth. I think they're going to be really good. And man, I don't think he told a single lie this whole season, man. They had a dominant win over my guys in Berlin Highland. Man, that hurt my soul a little bit. But shout out to Monroe Central. It's nice to see just like kind of like some new faces, some new teams that have a shot to make a push. Roth did make this pick. That hurts my heart to say that. Um, this is a region that honestly, man, I don't have a ton of thoughts on. Honestly, man, I'm not super familiar with many of these teams.
Did you ever see the Jace Rothwell kid at North Adams?
I did.
Yeah, so they won again. They won their district, so they play Monroe Central. And then the other side is Cardigan Lincoln versus Beaver Eastern. Beaver Eastern had a thrilling contest in their district final against, or district semifinal against Reedsville Eastern. That was a really
Yeah,
fun game.
are there, man? I kid you not. As I'm typing out like my daily schedule and I was going through all the brackets, the amount of high schools that have Eastern in the damn name, especially down in Southeast or East Ohio, it's insane.
Well, this is even crazier. Beaver Eastern and Reedsville Eastern, both nicknamed the Eagles. So you have two Eastern Eagles in Southeast Ohio.
Insane, man.
Region 24, Marion Local won the stacked district that included Spencerville and Coldwater. Shout out the Flyers. I went to that district semifinal doubleheader. Shout out to Coldwater. Balin, I forget his last name, Balin Blockberger is a all-state football player, but he is a very impressive basketball player. He hit some big-time shots in the second half to push Coldwater past Spencerville. And then Marion Local was able to defeat their conference rivals. And it looks like we are going to get a Marion Local versus Tri-Village regional final. Marion Local has to get through Miami Valley Christian Academy, and Tri-Village takes on Anna. But that would be a pretty good regional final. D7, still setting up for a Cornerstone Warren JFK game on Friday night.
Want to talk about a good regional final. That's a game that I will absolutely be at on Friday if we get it. And I would expect us to, but crazier things can happen and have happened. But a Cornerstone Christian Warren JFK game on Friday at Barberton, another very underrated gym to go watch a basketball game in. Really cool place. That's where you will find me Friday night if that game happens. Would be a ton of fun. Two of the better coaches in Northeast Ohio, two of the better seniors in Northeast Ohio with Nick Ryan and Quinn Turtle Kwasniak, who just became OHSAA's all-time leading scorer. That would just be a hell of a game. A lot of offense, a lot of fun. Those two coaches are really close friends with each other. So it would be a blast to see that game happen.
Yeah, shout out to Turtle. Region 26, we got Delphos St. John versus Fort Jennings. Delphos played an intense district final against Minster, who got up, I think, double digits in the first quarter. Very competitive game. And then Arlington takes on Edgerton. Shout out my buddy from OU, Carl Blaylock, Edgerton alumni. So I assume we'll get a Delphos St. John versus Arlington regional final. That should be a pretty good game. Region 27, Steubenville Catholic Central versus Portsmouth Notre Dame, and then Columbus Patriot Prep versus South Webster. We mentioned the Jeeps a little bit earlier, talking to Coach Cordonnier. They are the prohibitive favorite there. And Region 28, Northside Christian versus Russia, Franklin Monroe versus Botkins, another region that we hit with Coach Cordonnier. Final thoughts, TJ, before we wrap up this episode?
I'm slightly intrigued by that Franklin Monroe Botkins game. Having seen Botkins in the past, I just know like kind of how they play, and I was actually pretty impressed by Franklin Monroe. I thought that Franklin Monroe Chesapeake game that we saw earlier in the year was sneakily like one of the more just kind of like refreshing high school games I think we watched all season. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how that.
And they didn't have their leading scorer. So
Yeah,
you're adding another 16-point a game shooter athlete to that Franklin Monroe squad. So yeah, I think they're top 6, 7 team in D7 across the state for sure.
100%. And they're likely going to end up playing Russia. Yeah, be curious. Curious to see if that Botkins Franklin Monroe game looks and how that winner fares out against Russia. But we appreciate you guys, man, sticking around with us. Another longer episode. This was a long drive. We had to take the scenic route for you guys, especially when it comes to the tournament. I appreciate those of you who watched this all the way through, whether you got us going on as background noise or you listen to us in the car or while you're cleaning the house, whatever it is, man. We appreciate every listen. We appreciate every click. You see us out in the gym, feel free to say what's up, say hello. We always love talking basketball, love talking the show. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We will be seeing you next Monday. Maybe we'll put together something nice for you guys on Monday. I'd like to get a bigger show, get some more media guys, some more voices on here, kind of do like a roundtable type discussion. Might bring you guys some characters, man, some faces that you don't know or haven't seen in a while. We'll see if we can bring my guy Chaz Wolf out of retirement. Um, but yeah, until then, man, have fun. Enjoy your week. We'll see you guys soon.